Hello, world. This is Glen Alex, and welcome to the Glen Alex Show. On the Glen Alex Show, we focus on the whole person because all of you matter. We address the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the emotional because true health is way more than just diet and exercise. And I firmly believe that healthy people don't intentionally harm self or others. So just think about how much better off our world would be if we were all at an optimal level of health and didn't have baggage that we carried from relationship to relationship, from job to job, just from city to city. Things would be so much better in my mind. So I'd like for you to help me welcome my guest and family attorney, Shawana Johnson. And she's taking time. Thank you for being here. She's taking time out of her busy schedule to be here. So this is an honor. So, Shawana, tell us who you are.
Sure. When I heard about your show and when you asked me to be on it, I was thrilled because what you are doing and the topics you're addressing are phenomenal and they're very important to the community. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'm a native of Las Vegas.
One,
and
two or three.
Yes, there's like three of us. I was born and raised here. I did my undergrad at Harvard. I worked in finance for about 4 years before I went back to law school at Boston University. I've been practicing law about 10 years, and for most of that time, even in big law firms, I focused on family law issues. I now have my own practice and devote about 50% of it to family law. So I do custody, visitation, child support, guardianship, adoption. And I also devote about 40% of my practice to commercial litigation and about 10% to wills, trusts, and estates.
Wow.
So I do a little bit of everything. I'm usually in court, sprinting between courtrooms in courthouses, and what you touched on with health is very, very near and dear to me because I don't live the healthiest of lifestyles because I'm bouncing from courtroom to courtroom. So that's a little of me, and turn it back to you.
Well, thank you for that. You know, the world is so busy these days. Parents taking their kids to all these activities 24/7, people having more than one job, myself included. It can be challenging to incorporate healthy practices into a lifestyle. It is doable though. And that's why in Living in Total Health, we address every area of the person, not just the diet and managing calories and how many reps to do, because the total health package involves the whole person and what is specific and individual and important to you and how that would work for you specifically. So there's a way.
I certainly am searching for it.
There is a way. So you kind of cover the whole family, not just the nuclear family, not just the immediate family. There's some extended family stuff going on, some workplace family stuff going on in what you do. Can you break down like the percentages of divorce and custody and those kinds of divisions in what you do?
Sure. A fair number of people come to me for just custody and visitation issues. They're usually either divorced couples or couples who were never married. There could or could not be a custody order in place already, and one person is trying to keep the other person from the children or engaging in unhealthy activities, as you would say. You know, speaking bad about the other person to the child, withholding the child from the other parent, or just making it as difficult as possible. And so I do see a lot of unhealthy relationships and unhealthy interactions. And when you speak of the whole mind, body, and spirit, one of the things we really focus on in my practice and in the courts is that you don't speak ill of the other person in front of the children. None of this is healthy for the children. You know, children will never come back and say, I'm glad you talked about my mom or my dad in a really bad way. And so much of my time is spent just trying to get adults to act like adults. And that is very challenging. It is like herding cats. But I do get, some cases come into me kind of disjointed. They only want one or two things because there's already a history of the case. And then some people come to me at kind of the lowest point of their lives and they're like, my marriage is over. I need help guiding through. How do I get through this? If there are kids, how do we do this so that it's as least disruptive to the children children.
Okay.
And so there's a little bit of everything that comes my way during the day.
Well, what percentage would you say of those situations where the adults do begin to act like adults and they work it out for the benefit of the child?
Unfortunately, very few at the
Oh.
beginning. Most cases have a progression, and so if a typical divorce case might take a year and 3 months or so, at the very beginning, I would say 80% of my cases come to me hotly contested.
Okay.
And so the people aren't speaking, they have no agreement on how they're going to split the children, split the assets, split any of that.
Okay.
By the end of the case, they are a little bit better because they see, and the judge has gotten through to them, and the attorneys, if I'm dealing with a reasonable attorney, we've all kind of sat them down and said, look, stop fighting over all of this. We can come to an agreement. I would say probably 95% of my cases, there's an agreement to be made on how to split things. So I would say in the progression of my cases, about 80% are hotly contested. By the end of it, it's a little less contested because people are tired of litigating and they're tired of paying their attorneys.
I was about to say it comes down to money.
It does. It does come down to money.
Yes.
And so that's how it breaks down. I know me I try to be a reasonable attorney, and I don't fight over silly things. If there's an agreement to be made, any reasonable attorney is going to sit down with the other attorneys, sit down with the parties and say, what can we figure out to save you folks some time and some money and some heartache?
Okay.
So.
Okay. Interesting. A question just popped into my head, though. What percentage of those hotly contested cases does the judge have to step in and force the issue?
Actually, the hotly contested cases, I would say of mine, if there's that 80% that are hotly contested, about 70% go to trial, 70 to 75%, where the judge has to decide. And in family law cases, there's no jury. The judge decides everything. The two trials are split, so we decide custody and visitation first and get the children situated, and then finances. Those two are never combined. They are always bifurcated. And the judge makes a decision. A fair number of cases, I would say about 30% settle before we get very far into the case. And I have had cases settle at trial. Actually, a fair number of
Once
cases
they get in front of the
once
judge.
they get in front of the judge and
Like,
they
oh
start
my.
seeing it's not going to be all one way that they wanted.
Right.
Definitely some cases will settle right at trial. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for that information. Now, I wanted to focus on relationships this month. Number one, because it is Domestic Violence Month. And number two, relationships are critical to total health. As you just heard, when people are fighting and struggling, they're having that power struggle, especially when kids are involved. It takes its mental toll, it takes an emotional toll, it takes a financial toll, and that can just make anyone sick and unwell, and they'll carry that in every part of life that they travel in. So I think relationships are hugely important. So the timing, I think, was perfect for this topic. So in the next segment, we will get into the relationships a little more deeply. I do have some questions and some thoughts for Shawana and how the law fits into that. But before we get into that, please take a moment and check out our commercials from our sponsors. They are very brief, I promise. And you take this opportunity to get your copy of Living in Total Health. It is available on Amazon, on livingintotalhealth.com in hardcover and EPUB versions. We'll be right back.
Have you ever wondered what it would take to be healthy from head to toe? Not just on the outside, but inside as well. Glen Alex, author of the highly recognized book Living in Total Health, will guide you to becoming totally healthy. Glen is a health coach, licensed clinical social worker, public speaker, educator, and humanitarian who has set the standard with her 25 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. Glen addresses the whole person to achieve optimal health. Glen's book, Living in Total Health, is not a how-to, but a why-to for a healthy life. Purchase her book through her website at livingintotalhealth.com for an autographed copy. You can get a copy on Amazon and an ebook version at smashwords.com. Those with a high level of health do not intentionally harm oneself or others. Make the world a better place and start living in total health.
Do you want to be healthier, not feeling your best? Need access to health care? The Health Matters Health Fair at Doolittle Community Center is where you want to be on April 21st, 10 to 2. Presented by G. Alex Foundation. free health screenings and consults, free bicycle and pedestrian safety classes for youth, free tennis clinics for all, free yoga, fitness, and African dance classes, free kidney education class, and a variety of health and wellness vendors. All activities are indoors and free. For more information, contact Glen at 702-807-7349. Your health matters. Be there. Hello, world, and welcome back to the Glen Alex Show. I am here with family attorney Shawana Johnson, and we are focusing on relationships because they are important to overall health. My introduction into health, for those of you who know me, my life's work is about health, in social work, in massage, in writing the book, and running a foundation. It's all health-centered. However, my introduction into health issues started with relationships. I remember as a little girl at family functions and social events, I would watch how people interacted with each other, and you can see when someone went too far with a comment and the pained look on the other person's face, and just the fighting and the arguing and the bantering. I cannot stand bantering in relationships. Anyway, that was my introduction into health, and then it just bled into the other areas of health from there. So that's why, one of the reasons why we're focused on relationships in this segment and in this issue. And the other reason is because it is Domestic Violence Month. And unfortunately, people get physical and hurt other people. And in intimate relationships, that's where the domestic violence part comes in. So I would like to know from Shawana, what percentage of your family cases involve domestic violence?
I would say it would normally come up in either a custody dispute or a divorce. There may be a history, or there may be a police incident where the one person went to jail. I would say probably about 15% of the time, not too much. That's all in what I deal with. It's definitely prevalent in other areas of family law. For example, in the juvenile justice system, or if we're dealing with termination of parental rights, or there are children who have been taken to child haven and perhaps the Department of Family Services is involved. There's a lot more domestic violence involved in those cases. My cases usually involve, if it's a relatively rough relationship and there are children involved, at some point during the relationship there might have been an argument, there might have been a physical scuffle, the police were called, and at least one person generally goes to jail. It hasn't impacted my cases too much, but I definitely pay attention to it, and so do the judges. It is a factor in settling custody. If domestic violence occurs in front of the children, that is a big no-no, and that is a big thing that will be held against the perpetrator. It is taken very seriously. But, fortunately, I haven't had to deal with it too much in my cases.
Okay. That's good news. Overall, though, do you think domestic violence, the incidences are diminishing, or it's getting worse? No,
I think it's actually getting worse, unfortunately. And it's men and women who are being the aggressors. There used to be, this purview that it was only the man who would go to jail. No, there are women out there hitting men too. And unfortunately, it's in the Las Vegas Valley, it's getting worse because of
mutual
the drug
combat,
problem.
Is that what they still call it?
Mutual combat, that's it. That's a good term from blast from the past. You see a lot of it with people just strife, and when they're involved in the gangs or the drugs or the gambling or any of those kind of outside factors, and there's strife there between the parties, you see it a lot. And Metro responds to it very seriously. And there's usually, in my field, I will see it sometimes years after the fact, but there's a police report, and as soon as that event happens, no matter what the disposition of it is always there. And some people will say, oh, that was years ago, that was nothing, but it is very serious.
It follows you.
It follows
It
you.
follows you.
And, one really interesting thing, if I can say, people will come years later and say, oh, well, I just volunteered for the police to take me to jail because I didn't want to get the other person in trouble. It doesn't matter. If there is an incident, if
I didn't do it.
I didn't do it, and I was
Wasn't
only
me.
protecting myself, and then the report
Right.
says the other thing. People should realize that you can't contradict a sworn police report years after the fact with
Right.
your version of the facts. And
Right.
so I've seen a lot of that in my
That's
cases.
a good point. Don't take the fall for someone else.
Right.
It's
Just
going to
don't
follow
do
you.
it.
It's going to follow
You'll
you.
never be able to explain that away later on, especially in front of a judge for custody.
Yeah, okay. Well, I worked in another state in domestic violence as a social worker. I worked actually both sides of the aisle. I worked with the batterers and with the women that they abused. And I have to tell you, it was very eye-opening and a valuable experience. So it gave me a lot of psychological insight into the dynamics of that relationship. I won't go into any details here. What struck me, though, the most is everybody focuses on why the woman won't leave.
Right.
If it's so bad, why won't she leave?
Right.
Let's flip that coin. Let's flip the script a little bit. If it's that bad, why won't he leave?
That is a great.
If you have to beat someone to make dinner exactly the way you want it, or exactly the moment you want it, or to have sex whenever you want it, why stay?
Right, or why not do those things yourself, since you're clearly the only person that can do it, right?
You're
I
clearly
agree.
capable, so
I
you can do
agree.
it yourself. So, I mean, I'm really happy to hear that domestic violence is not as prevalent in your cases as I imagined. Although socially, I hope we get a handle on that very, very quickly. If not for the adults involved, definitely for the children.
Absolutely.
Definitely for the children.
It's a cultural thing that's going on
Yeah.
now. It has been so acceptable to grab or say comments or
Yes.
grope or any
Yes.
of that.
Oh.
And the Me Too movement, it was just so shocking. Every single woman I know in the history of the world had a Me Too moment. And so when we change the culture around it, we will change the culture, and it is never acceptable for man or woman to hit the
No,
other.
it's not. I mean, your right to whatever you want to feel and think stops at my nose.
That's right. That's
So
right.
let's
right.
be clear about that.
Yes.
And you're right. It'll take both sides to fix it.
Absolutely.
To fix it. So maybe we'll do an episode on boundaries at some point, because those are important to health as well. And there's a chapter in the book about that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're going to take another quick break, but before we do, I'd like Shawana to tell everyone how she can be contacted. If they have questions about family law or just any direction or guidance is needed, then tell them.
Sure. I have a solo practice. My office is here centrally located. I can always be contacted at sjohnson@sljlaw702.com. My phone number is always 702-755-6949. If you ever forget any of that, you can always find any lawyer in the state of Nevada on the state bar's website. So you go to nvbar.org,
Okay.
and you can always just put in a lawyer's number, and the information has to stay current, so you can find me that way.
Okay. And you can also come out and see Shawana at the upcoming health fair presented by G. Alex Foundation on April 21st from 10 to 2 at Doolittle Community Center. It is free to attend, and we will have things like yoga, African dance, tennis, free blood pressure checks, free cholesterol screenings, diabetes screenings. Power 88 will be there. So come on out. Shawana will be there too. So bring your questions and come out and see us. And we will be right back after this quick break. And please take a look at our sponsors.
Have you ever wondered what it would take to be healthy from head to toe? Not just on the outside, but inside as well. Glen Alex, author of the highly recognized book Living in Total Health, will guide you to becoming totally healthy. Glen is a health coach, licensed clinical social worker, public speaker, educator, and humanitarian who has set the standard with her 25 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. Glen addresses the whole person to achieve optimal health. Glen's book, Living in Total Health, is not a how-to, but a why-to for a healthy life. Purchase her book through her website at livingintotalhealth.com for an autographed copy. You can get a copy on Amazon and an ebook version at smashwords.com. Those with a high level of health do not intentionally harm oneself or others. Make the world a better place and start living in total health.
Do you want to be healthier, not feeling your best? Need access to health care? The Health Matters Health Fair at Doolittle Community Center is where you want to be on April 21st, 10 to 2. Presented by G. Alex Foundation. Free health screenings and consults, free bicycle and pedestrian safety classes for youth, free tennis clinics for all, free yoga, fitness, and African dance classes, free kidney education class, and a variety of health and wellness vendors. All activities are indoors and free. For more information, contact Glen at 702-807-7349. Your health matters. Be there. Hello, world, and welcome back to the Glen Alex Show. I am here with a family attorney, Shawana Johnson, and we are talking about relationships. We covered domestic violence, just family issues that show up in court. And so in this segment, we will take questions from health seekers. So
Okay.
I have some questions for Shawana.
All right. Shoot, I'll try to answer them as well as I can.
I'm sure you will. This one comes from Mary, and there's a little backstory. Mary has 3 kids by her ex-husband. When they divorced, the judge ordered him to pay a certain amount of child support. Shortly after divorce, he lost his job, and that was several years ago, and has not had a steady job since. So even though there's no proof of income, should he be paying a minimum amount?
Absolutely. When a change in circumstances happens, someone loses their job or they have an increase or decrease of more than 20%, by law, they have to go back and ask for a modification of their child support in order for a modification to go through.
Okay.
So in the example of Mary's ex-husband, just because he lost his job does not mean that his child support automatically goes down. He has to file a motion and get permission of the court and present the facts as to why his child support should be at a minimum. In Nevada, the statutory minimum per child is $100 per month. So
Okay.
at the very basic, he should be paying $300.
Okay.
But he would have to get an order of the court. Let's say the court ordered him to pay $1,000. The order is the order until it's changed, and so it would be his responsibility to go to the court, ask for a reduction, prove that he has lost his job, has been trying to find a job,
Okay.
is not purposely underemployed to avoid paying child support,
Or,
because several people
employed
do
under
that.
the table.
Employed under the table. And he would have to prove the circumstances as to why he should have a reduction in child support.
Okay.
And if the judge found that he met his burden, his legal burden, then the judge could lower it to a minimum of $100 per month.
Wow, that's interesting. So since he has not gone back and asked for a reduction, does what he owe accumulate, or as far as the court is concerned, he's paying it?
Oh no, it absolutely accumulates
Okay.
into arrears. So there are cases where people owe, $500,000 in arrears
Ooh.
because they've never paid their child
That's
support.
worse than a student loan.
Right, exactly, exactly. That's a whole student loan.
Hey, pay up.
I was actually just successful in obtaining a judgment for my client for $58,000 in back child support.
Oh,
It
wow.
accumulates.
Okay.
And so I represent both, sometimes the person who's receiving the child support and the person that's paying the child support. They will come to me and say, my financial circumstances are not the same. How do we get into court to lower the child support?
Okay.
And I tell them we file a motion, we prove that you've been looking for a job, that your
Okay.
circumstances have changed. But until that order is officially changed, it keeps accumulating, and
accumulating.
it grows interest.
Okay, Mary, you've got some money coming.
Yes,
This
you
is-
do.
It might be as good as a lottery ticket or mega bucks.
So contact me, Mary, and we will figure out how to get your money.
Tell me your number real
Absolutely.
quick.
702-755-6949.
Okay, dollar up, Mary. Dollar up.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this question is my question, actually. In talking about relationships, do you have clients who come to you for divorce or custody issues, and they might mention that they saw warning signs of how this person would be when they first got together, and that ended up being the bugaboo that killed the relationship?
You know, it is so funny. I always ask that question, especially as I see a case unfold and I realize just how incompatible two people are. I always ask the question. It turns out once I get it out of them and they'll admit it, the warning signs were always there. They just ignored them, or they thought that they could change the person. And this is men and women have finally admitted this to me.
Oh, I know men do it too.
Absolutely.
Totally.
They think they can change the person.
Yes.
You cannot change a person. I am telling you, you cannot change a person.
You cannot change another person. And if you read Living in Total Health, it'll explain why. And it'll explain what you can do to understand that and to manage yourself better. So, sorry.
Absolutely. No, please. That's absolutely. I'm so glad you addressed it in the book, because, you know, even if you're not setting out to change a person, you have to decide what you can live with and what you can't live with.
Exactly.
And if you focus on something at the very beginning, or something's catching your eye that you can't live with, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse with time and familiarity.
And you can't love it away.
You can't love it away. You can't buy it away. You
Right.
can't do any of those things. And all it does is fester and it grows. And I've seen people, I always ask every client, you know, how did you go from you were once married and in love to this?
To this.
And it just progresses and progresses and progresses. It progresses, and it never improves.
It's not going to get better.
It's not.
And resentment builds in you.
Absolutely.
You become resentful not only towards that other person, but there's a part of you that is angry at yourself for accepting it.
How could I have devoted my life to him? How could I have given her
What was
my
I
20s?
thinking?
What was I thinking? And, you know, one thing, if you don't mind, one thing that really, really doesn't strike people until after their case that they see me, you are stuck with this person for the rest of your life, especially if you have children. It is not just until you're 18. It is the rest of your life. And so they don't understand the permanency of the decisions they make and the people that they have these relationships with. And so it's very important that unless you're going to have an unhealthy life for the rest of your life, you have to make good decisions about healthy relationships.
You have to make decisions that require critical thinking, and it could be a difficult decision. But you still have to weigh: do I want to live with this for the rest of my life, or do I want to take a chance and go out on my own? So you have to make a decision.
Absolutely.
Now, just a quick story. I'm divorced, and when my ex-husband and I were dating, we went out with, you know, sisters and boyfriends, and, you know, it was a group of us that went out dancing. And so after that, everybody said he was very nice and everything, but one of my sister Gwen, yes, there's a Gwen, she came to me and she said, you know, he's a little too stiff for you. And I'm like, what do you mean? I thought she meant because he danced stiff. And she said, I don't know. That's all she could think of, was he was just a little too stiff for you. And it turns out she had picked up on something, mental and emotional stiffness, some rigidity there that I didn't see. So, you know, not only are intimate relationships important for you to be thoughtful about, it's also important to have people around you who have your best interest at heart.
Absolutely.
And to point out things that you can't see, and, you know, for you to have the opportunity to take a look at it and maybe make a better decision. So
Absolutely.
I just had to share that. That was pretty funny.
That is absolutely correct.
So I do have a quick question, though, because we're almost out of time. I had heard on the radio this week that, I don't know where the statistic came from, but about 85% of social media is involved in about 85% of divorces and breakups.
Yes.
Is that true?
That is, I would absolutely agree with that. It turns out your Facebook posts, your Instagram posts will absolutely show up in a court of law, possibly, especially during a divorce case. I always heard, coming up in my career, especially as in my law career, don't ever put something in writing that you don't want on the front page of the paper or in front of a judge. Absolutely. Some judges vary how much they pay attention to that or how much effort they put on it, but I have 100% used social media posts in my cases to either prove or disprove a point.
Okay, another reason to be careful about what you post and what you say about other people. Because if you don't want to take responsibility for it publicly or in a critical situation like in front of a judge, then don't do it.
Absolutely.
Just don't do it. Okay. Well, thank you for confirming that. That's quite frightening.
It is frightening. It is frightening. More frightening is the things that people will say right there in a public forum and then claim that they have a privacy expectation. You don't have a privacy expectation of anything you post publicly.
Not if you have 1,000 friends or
Right.
even 2 friends.
And you made it public.
And you made it public.
Right. I've actually had to answer that question before, so
Okay.
spot on.
All right. So note to self.
Yes.
Don't say bad things about Danny Vegas. Danny's awesome. He knows I think he's awesome too. All right. So, guys, this was a fun show and it went by so quickly.
It did.
We could talk about this stuff forever. So please help me thank Shawana Johnson for being here, taking time out of her schedule, and for giving us her insight and her expertise in family matters.
Thank you so much for having me and for being such a pillar of health in our community. It is very inspiring.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. You can see me and Shawana at the Health Matters Community Health Fair at Doolittle Community Center on April 21st from 10 to 2. It's free to attend, and it's open to everyone. So please come out and join us. Get some free access to health care, free activities, and just free fun. And you can
Free legal advice.
Free legal advice, and you can just chat us up and just have a good time. And you can also get your copy of Living in Total Health from Amazon, livingintotalhealth.com, and it is also is available in the hardcover and the EPUB versions. So thank you again for being here. Thank you, Shawana, and we will see you next month. In the meantime, be well.